I was 34 when my entire world collapsed, and the people who should have supported me the most, my own family, smiled while it happened. My name is Daniel Mercer, and for as long as I can remember, my life revolved around Mercer and Coger Logistics, a mid-sized transportation company founded by my grandfather in Birmingham, England. While other kids were playing football or dreaming about university parties, I was riding in delivery trucks, learning routes, memorizing client lists, and listening to my father talk endlessly about legacy, honor, and the Mercer name. "Family reputation is everything," he used to say. "We build for the next generation." I believed him. I lived by those words. I worked 16-hour days, missed birthdays, ruined relationships, and slowly burned myself out because I genuinely thought I was preparing to take over the company one day. My father always hinted at it, always praised my dedication, always said I was the one who understood the business. So when the day finally came for him to retire, I expected a formal announcement that I would be stepping into his role. Instead, he handed the keys, both metaphorically and literally, to my younger sister, Emily. Emily, who had never worked a single day in the business. Emily, whose only experience with the company was using the corporate credit card for shopping trips. Emily, who once asked me whether we still used horses to pull the trucks. I honestly thought it was some kind of joke. But I saw the truth in my father's eyes when he introduced her as the new CEO to the board, smiling proudly while she waved like a beauty pageant contestant. "We need fresh ideas," he said later in his office when I confronted him. "New blood. Emily represents the future." I stood there, speechless. Fresh ideas? She had no ideas. She didn't even understand what our company actually did. I had sacrificed everything for this business. My long-term girlfriend left me because I prioritized work. My health deteriorated from stress and lack of sleep. I became estranged from friends. And now, after all those years, I was expected to answer to someone who couldn't even read a quarterly report. The board applauded the decision. My mother cried tears of joy. Emily hugged my father, and I stood in the corner, stunned, realizing that the legacy I dedicated my life to had just been handed to someone who didn't care. But the worst part? They smiled while it happened. They celebrated my downfall as if it were a victory. At first, I tried to remain calm. I told myself I could guide her, mentor her, help her succeed for the good of the company. I swallowed my pride and tried to support her new role. But almost immediately, Emily began undermining me. She questioned every decision I made. She held meetings without me. She blamed me for problems she created. She even accused me of mismanaging finances when she was the one approving absurd expenses, like redecorating the executive floor with designer furniture and hosting lavish branding events that accomplished nothing. The final straw came during a board meeting, when she publicly claimed that I was too old-fashioned and resistant to innovation, and that the company would thrive once I stopped interfering. Everyone nodded. Everyone agreed. My own father remained silent. That silence hurt more than any words could. That day, I walked out. Not because I gave up, but because I couldn't bear to watch everything I built fall apart under Emily's incompetence. I left the office, handed in my resignation, and told them I was done. The last thing I saw as the elevator doors closed was my family smiling. They thought they had won. They thought removing me would make their lives easier. They had no idea what was coming next. I had no idea either. But fate had already started turning, and those smiles would soon disappear. The weeks after I left the company felt like wandering through fog. For the first time since I was 15, I woke up without a purpose. No meetings, no clients, no trucks leaving the depot at dawn. I tried to convince myself that I was finally free, that I could breathe, that I could rebuild my life. But instead I felt hollow. Every sacrifice I had made now felt pointless. My father barely spoke to me. Emily blocked my number. The board replaced me within days. Rumors spread quickly. Apparently, I couldn't handle change and quit in anger. No one mentioned the years I kept the company alive through economic downturns, fuel crises, and logistics breakdowns. No one cared. My family had erased me. Then, 2 months later, everything changed. I was eating a lonely dinner in my small flat when my phone rang. It was my mother, her voice trembling. "Daniel, your father's in hospital. Heart attack." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. All of the anger, resentment, and betrayal evaporated, replaced by a cold fear that gripped my chest. "Where is he?" I asked. "St. George's Hospital. Please, come." I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my coat and drove through the rain-soaked streets of Birmingham, ignoring speed limits, headlights blurring through the windshield. When I reached the hospital and found his room, I expected to see Emily there. She wasn't. My father lay pale and fragile in the bed, tubes and monitors surrounding him. The man who once seemed indestructible now looked small, diminished. My mother sat beside him, eyes red and tired. "Has Emily been here?" I whispered. My mother shook her head. "She said she had an important meeting," she said bitterly. "A branding partnership or something. She told me she'd try to come tomorrow." Tomorrow. Our father might not have a tomorrow. I clenched my fists, rage boiling in my veins. I had many reasons to hate Emily, but this was unforgivable. Hours passed before my father finally woke up, his voice weak. "Daniel." "I'm here, Dad." He looked around the room, searching. "Where's Emily?" I swallowed hard. "She's not coming." He closed his eyes, and for the first time, I saw regret in his expression. Not annoyance, not frustration, true regret. "I made a mistake," he whispered. "I thought giving her the company would make her grow up, give her responsibility. I thought you'd be fine. You always were." I felt tears sting my eyes. "You didn't just give her responsibility," I said quietly. "You gave her everything. And she never cared." He nodded weakly. "I trusted the wrong person." Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. For years I had wanted this, an acknowledgement, an apology, something that validated everything I had sacrificed. Yet hearing it now didn't feel like victory. It felt like tragedy, because it came too late, because the company was already collapsing, because our family was fractured beyond repair. When he fell asleep again, my mother turned to me. "Daniel, you have to help? The company is falling apart? Clients are leaving, employees are quitting, we're losing everything." Of course they were. Emily had no idea what she was doing, and the board had supported her blindly. The damage was inevitable. I took a deep breath. Returning meant facing the very people who celebrated my downfall. It meant cleaning up a disaster I didn't create. It meant stepping back into a world that broke me. But as I looked at my father, frail, defeated, I knew I couldn't just walk away. Whether I liked it or not, Mercer & Co. was still my legacy. My grandfather built it. My father expanded it. And I had kept it alive. I wasn't going to let it die because of incompetence and vanity. "I'll go back," I said quietly. "But not for Emily. and not for the board. For him. My mother nodded, tears running down her cheeks. The next morning, I returned to the office for the first time since leaving. No one expected me. When I walked through the doors, conversation stopped. People stared. Some looked relieved. Others looked guilty. A few looked terrified. Emily wasn't there. Her assistant informed me she had taken a trip to London for networking and wouldn't be back for a week. Perfect. I went straight to the conference room and began reviewing reports. What I found made my stomach drop. Massive debts, lost contracts, failed projects, lavish spending, mismanaged resources, logistics errors that could shut down operations entirely. Emily had been running the company into the ground, and the board had been too blinded by her charm and fresh ideas to notice. It was worse than I imagined. The business my family built over 3 generations was weeks away from bankruptcy, and the people who smiled when I was forced out, they were about to learn exactly what losing me truly meant. Because I wasn't there to watch the company burn. I was there to save it. And when I was done, they would never smile at my downfall again. The first week back felt like performing surgery on a dying patient with no anesthesia. Every department was in crisis. Logistics had lost 2 major contracts because shipments were delayed for weeks. Finance showed overspending on marketing campaigns Emily had launched without planning. HR was a disaster. Half the experienced staff had resigned, replaced by her friends, who had no qualifications whatsoever. I stayed in the office from early morning until well after midnight, surviving on coffee and adrenaline. I called clients personally, apologizing, negotiating, begging for extensions. Some agreed, mostly out of respect for me. Others refused, burned by Emily's arrogance. The worst part? I found out she had taken out a massive loan in the company's name to fund a flashy rebranding project. New logo, new office furniture, influencer partnerships, all style, no substance. We were bleeding money. On the 4th day, the board finally called an emergency meeting. The same people who had smiled when I left now looked at me with desperation in their eyes. "Daniel, can you fix this?" one of them asked. "We're weeks from insolvency," another whispered. I leaned back, feeling a grim satisfaction. They had wanted fresh ideas. They had pushed me out for being too traditional. Now they were begging for the very stability they mocked. "I can stabilize the company," I said, "but only if I have full operational control." The room shifted uncomfortably. "What about Emily?" the chairman asked. I met his eyes. "Emily abandoned her responsibilities. She hasn't been here in days. She has no idea what's happening." Silence. No one defended her. They all knew the truth. Finally, the chairman sighed. "Very well. You have full control. Temporarily." I nodded. It was enough. Over the next 2 weeks, I worked harder than I ever had in my life. I cut unnecessary spending, canceled pointless partnerships, and renegotiated contracts. I rehired 2 of our best former managers, people Emily had pushed out. I restored communication with longtime clients who trusted me. Slowly, the numbers began to stabilize. Employees started smiling again. Not the smug, satisfied smiles I'd seen when I walked out months ago, but relieved, hopeful ones. People thanked me in the hallways. "You saved our jobs," one warehouse supervisor said, nearly in tears. I realized something. I wasn't doing this for my father anymore, or for the legacy. I was doing it for the people who had given their lives to this company, the ones who actually cared. They deserved better than to be collateral damage in a family power struggle. And then one morning, Emily finally returned. She strutted into the office, wearing designer clothes, sunglasses on, carrying shopping bags. She looked around, confused by the busy atmosphere, the focused energy. "What's going on?" she asked. "We're rebuilding the company you nearly destroyed," I replied calmly. She scoffed. "Oh, please. You're overreacting. I had everything under control." I handed her the financial reports. Her face drained of color. This can't be right." "It's exactly right," I said. "We were weeks away from bankruptcy." She stared at me, eyes burning with hate. "You just want to make me look bad." "You did that on your own," I replied. Her lips trembled. "You think you're the hero here? Dad gave me the company, not you." I took a deep breath. "Dad made a mistake. He knows that now." Her expression twisted. "Is that what he told you in the hospital? That's why you came crawling back?" I stepped closer. "I didn't come back for the company. I came back for him, for Mom, for the employees." "And now what?" she snapped. "You think you get to keep everything?" I looked at her for a long moment. "No, I don't want it." Her eyes widened. "What?" "I'm stabilizing the company," I said. "Then I'm handing it over to someone who actually deserves it." Her confusion turned to panic. "Who?" I smiled slightly. "To someone who's earned the trust of the employees. Someone responsible. Someone loyal." She scoffed again, but it sounded forced. "There's no one else." "There is," I said. And I wasn't lying, because in the process of rebuilding, I had realized something painful. No matter how much I sacrificed, no matter how hard I worked, the company would always be tied to my family, to the expectations, to the resentment, to the legacy I never asked for. I wanted a life that was mine, free, independent. Emily stared at me as if I had betrayed her, but she didn't understand. Walking away wasn't weakness, it was liberation. When I finally left the office that night, exhausted but strangely peaceful, I checked my phone. A message from the hospital. My father was awake. He wanted to see me. And I knew this time, when I walked into that room, things would be different. Because I was no longer the son desperate for approval. I had become the man who saved the family legacy and was now ready to let it go. When I walked into my father's hospital room, he looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. The man who had once been a force of nature, commanding respect with a glance, building a company from nothing, now lay pale, frail, connected to wires and monitors. But when he saw me, his eyes lit up. "Daniel," he whispered. I approached his bedside, unsure of what to feel. Anger, sadness, love, all of it churned inside me. He reached for my hand with trembling fingers. I heard, "What you did." I swallowed. "I just stabilized things. The company will be fine." He shook his head weakly. "No, not the company. You." His voice cracked. "You became the man I always hoped you would be. Not because you stayed, but because you chose for yourself." Those words hit harder than I expected. For years, I had believed that loyalty meant sacrifice, that love meant obedience, that legacy meant chains. But now, hearing my father, stubborn, proud, uncompromising, say he understood, it felt like release. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for putting that weight on you, for assuming you wanted my path." I squeezed his hand. "I'm sorry, too, for thinking I needed your approval to live my life." We stayed like that, for the first time in years. Just father and son, not boss and heir. The next week, I finalized everything. The company was stable again, Contracts secured, staff restored, finances under control. People assumed I would return permanently. The board hinted heavily. Investors called. Employees celebrated. Emily begged. She showed up in my office, eyes red, mascara smudged. "Please," she said, "don't do this. Don't take the company from me." I looked at her, not with anger anymore, but clarity. "I'm not taking it from you." She blinked. "I'm giving it to someone else." Her face twisted. Who? Who could possibly? Mrs. Green. Silence. The name hung in the air. She stared as if I'd spoken nonsense. "The operations director?" She finally choked out. "Dad's old assistant? She's the reason the company functioned while you were redecorating," I said calmly. "She knows every department, every contract, every employee. They trust her. She's not family." "Exactly." Emily opened her mouth, closed it, then sank into a chair. "You can't do this," she whispered. "I can," I said. "And I am. Because the business needed a leader, not a bloodline." When the transfer was announced, the entire office erupted in applause. People hugged Mrs. Green, some even cried. For the first time in decades, leadership was earned, not inherited. And as I walked out of the building, box in hand, the staff lined the hallway. Not out of tradition, not out of obligation, but out of gratitude. "Thank you, Daniel," someone said behind me. I turned. It was the warehouse supervisor who'd nearly cried weeks earlier. "You saved us." I smiled. "No, you all saved yourselves. I just reminded you what the company could be." He shook his head. "You gave us hope." Hope. I hadn't felt that word apply to me in a long time. My new business started small, a consulting firm focused on helping struggling family companies transition responsibly. No politics, no nepotism, no inherited power structures, just experience, just fairness, just freedom. I rented a tiny office above a cafe in Brighton, cheap furniture, a single laptop, a coffee machine that barely worked. And I loved it. Every step, every decision, every success was mine. No legacy looming overhead. No expectations crushing me. No siblings waiting to sabotage me. I woke up excited for the first time in years. Months later, I visited my parents' house for dinner. My father sat at the table recovering well. My mother hugged me longer than usual. We talked, laughed, ate. No tension, no business, no disappointment. At one point, my father looked at me and smiled. "A business built by love," he said softly, "will always outlive one built by obligation." I nodded. He was right. As I left that evening, I glanced at my phone. A photo had been posted online. Emily, posing in front of the company sign, forced smile, captioned, "Running the family legacy with pride." But the comments told a different story. Employees writing, "Thank you, Mrs. Green. The best leadership we've ever had. Finally, someone who listens." It stung her. I could tell. The family name no longer guaranteed respect. Actions did. Looking out over the coastline, breathing the cold evening air, I realized something. The moment I walked away from the company was the moment I finally won. Because while they had smiled when they thought they'd taken everything from me, their smiles faded the moment they understood the truth. You can strip a person of titles, offices, and shares, but you can't take away their purpose, their skill, their freedom, their future. They lost the business. I gained a life, and I wouldn't trade that for anything.